All right, welcome to the Kubernetes SIG Cloud Provider meeting for August 14th, 2024. We don't have a giant quantity of items to discuss today, though we can always take a look at the needs triage. I saw a couple of things in there. But let me share my screen to believe this is what I want to share. Take a look at that. I've got a couple of windows here. All right. So the first thing that I wanted to show folks was the we'll come back to triage, but I wanted to show you that we did get our advanced cloud provider testing talk in, and Almiko isn't able to be here today. And I am messaging CNCF because note that they have that title correct, and they have a bio from 4 years ago, which is like, okay, they're clearly pulling old data sources, which is fun because I submitted it correctly. But yeah, we've got we are on Friday in the afternoon, very mellow. If somebody decides they want to join that, we can add people to the session to talk about cloud provider testing. So yeah, that's kind of we can discuss it when Almiko is back, but I wanted to just kind of let everyone know that we are on the schedule for once it doesn't conflict with all my governing board meetings, which is great. So yeah, so that is the cloud provider presence at KubeCon is set up. And then just clicking over to like open issues, specifically the needs triage ones with the label SIG Cloud Provider, there were a couple on here. So like this one, claims that it can't add labels. I don't know if anyone's gotten a chance to take a look at this yet. It looks like we talked about it. Okay. It looks like this probably doesn't require a lot of interaction from us. See if we have anything else. This one still says needs triage. Oh, Walter, it looks like you were called out on this one.
Yeah, I talked with Imran on this one. Go ahead and assign this one to me.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Okay. And you can deal with the triage, or are we triage accepting it, or are you going to investigate it first?
I know exactly what's going on there. So yeah, you can triage that.
Fantastic. Is there a hyphen? I can never remember. I'm going to roll the dice on hyphen. Hey, look at that. All right. I'm not sure that we have a lot else in here. Let's take a look. This one possibly being dealt with elsewhere. Ooh, flaky tasks. Do we want to talk about GCE flaky tasks? We accepted this, so. Looks like this is, well, a lot has gone on. Okay. Yeah, this is being dealt with.
Apparently by me. Give me 1 sec. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Nice. Okay. Let's see. Just kind of looking to see, more flaky tests already accepted. Do we know about this one? Hybrid cloud native support. Oh, I think I remember the discussion of this, the multiple CCM thing. And we think we probably wanted the CAP and okay. Oh, this one on. Okay. This is actually a really interesting, and maybe this is something that we can discuss, which is from the SIG leads and like the SIG lead and tech lead meeting, the monthly meeting yesterday, kind of a discussion of onboarding new people to participate. People often want a lot more than the SIG is necessarily ready to do. And I'm not sure that we have good answers to that. This, hey, I'm new. Please guide me to work on this thing that maybe is not well scoped and has a lot going on in it. That's kind of an interesting question of how do we get new people to participate? I'm interested in what folks think of that. I'm not sure that I need to be sharing that right now either. Everybody can see the doc. But yeah, like when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, I would like to work on this not very well scoped and possibly complex feature add or bug," like what do we think our guidance is as a SIG to get people to participate in that way?
So I will make a controversial statement.
Mm-hmm.
I will point out that there are a lot of people who, and this goes across multiple SIGs I have worked in, the idea of I can come in, I can do some interesting work, and I can dump it on the SIG and go away again is a persistent problem.
Yeah.
And if it's a small bug fix, fine. But if it's a significant feature, I think we need to be clear that anything of any real complexity needs to have a backup. Like there has to be a second person who's willing to say, I'm willing to support this thing. Otherwise, we don't want to take it on because it's basically just, I'll write some code and then I'll leave someone else to do the, the chopping wood and carrying water. And we have plenty of our own already. So I will say,
Yeah, I'm putting it in the notes just basically as we can't support drive-by contributions of significant new features.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we don't want to take significant new features, but yeah, exactly as you said, it can't be a drive-by.
Okay, so I think that like kind of what you're saying, if I'm summarizing it correctly, is if somebody rolls up and wants a significant new feature, they don't get to just drive by, drop on some code, or even just a request for someone, the mysterious someone, to write some code, um, and then disappear. This is kind of we would probably need a KEP, as was described in that particular issue we were just looking at. We'd probably, and for reference, I see Joel joined us while I was not looking at the screen, so I don't know what he missed, but we're talking about looking at something that people, they roll up and they're like, hey, I want something very significant. Like, okay. I mean, it's interesting, but we think that the bar is probably in some cases a KEP, in other cases, buy-in from somebody who's going to be there for the longer haul. Does that summarize what you're thinking, Walter? Um,
I mean, that's the negative. Obviously, we also want to encourage, but yeah, as part of encouraging, like, I do not, yeah, exactly.
yeah. Now, I know that Elmiko and I have given the advice to people before, and this probably goes right into the controversial bucket, but like we've given the advice to people before that if you want to get started on, Kate's 101 new contributor experience, SIG Cloud Provider is not necessarily the best place to start. Because you probably are going to want to be engaged with a cloud provider. So if you work with Equinix or if you work with AWS or if you work at Red Hat or whatever, then you can connect with it as part of your day-to-day professional experience. And otherwise, it's like you kind of need to be talking to somebody who works at or with some of the big providers in order to learn to be effective. I feel like this might be a very challenging SIG for people to kind of be the solo on their own contributor in Nebraska. That's my thesis, at least.
I think that is true, but I will throw one interesting caveat.
Mm.
If someone came in and said, I want to turn kind, like a kind cluster into something that looks like a cloud provider, I would be wholly supportive of that. I think it would be a great thing to do and wouldn't actually require cloud provider, a tight cloud provider experience. But I think that is sort of the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah. I think to your point, I think the testing space is also, and maybe that's why it's a good topic for a KubeCon talk, because the testing space is a place where somebody could come in from the outside and be like, all right, which tests are not reporting what we expect, which tests are flaking, et cetera. I mean, they still need resources to test them, but there are the community clusters now. So.
Well, but also, I mean, if we actually had a kind cloud provider, a cloud provider type of kind, and we had a KCM like that was designed to act like it does on a cloud provider, except that it's, the various callouts like what's your node ID were designed to work with kind, so that you got something that behaves more like Kubernetes does in a cloud provider. I think that would be a great project, and would be something that a non AWS, Red Hat, whatever employee could do. But I think that's very much the exception. That's the only place I think it would be easy for someone outside one of the big cloud providers to actually do cloud provider work.
Yeah. That's interesting because it brings up the other thing that got discussed at the SIG and tech lead meeting, was the idea of good first issue. And I know I personally always struggle with this. Like, how do you label something as good first issue and have it actually be scoped to be something that somebody coming in from the street could actually do? And I don't know if I have an answer for that either. Like, do we have anything we can label good first issue? Do we explicitly not have the ability to support good first issue? Like, I guess, the project as a whole, kids as a whole, would love to have all the SIGs label their good first issues as such, if we have the ability to. But what are we thinking? Like, what could we label as good first issue?
I feel like I'm doing too much of the talking. Someone else, please put up their hand if you'd like to get me to shut up. So my thoughts are, most of our issues are cloud provider specific. So even if I can't think of a good example, I would say that most of our good first issues are probably cloud provider specific good first issues. So it's not like I can tell an Amazon engineer, hey, we've got this great Microsoft first issue bug. Like, I don't think that works too well. There are a small number of central issues. So, I mean, I will say, and whether or not any of them are good first issues is a great problem. But if we wanted to do something like, say, we want to get onto the same framework, we want to finally finish unifying CCM and KCM framework code, I think that it's not a great, I'm not sure if that'd be a great first issue, but that at least is not a cloud provider specific. And I think it would be a valuable thing for us to look at some point. But I mean, short of a little bit of framework stuff like that, most of our stuff is cloud provider specific. And so I think it leads to a better question, not a better question, but an interesting alternate, which is, it would be really nice if we had cloud provider specific leads. So, if maybe what we need is a Google lead, an Amazon lead, a Red Hat lead, and at some point we defer to them to say, hey, we got a new Red Hat, someone who does a lot of Red Hat, they were looking for a good Red Hat first issue.
Yeah. So that opens up the question of, like, we should reconsider some of our tags in the repo just to make it easier to filter on that sort of stuff. I think we have some provider specific tags, but maybe looking at the tags again. And then I know we've talked before about trying to find better times for this meeting. And I think one of the challenges is Peng Fei cannot come to this meeting time. He is in China. So if we can find, or if we, I know we had talked before about maybe this is worth deferring until Miko is back as well, but we might want to consider, and I'm just curious, especially people who are joining in off times for them, I'm looking at you, Joel. But I wonder if we want to consider doing the, so, half the time it's early, half the time it's late, that some other SIGs do. Like, what do you think of that? Joel is pondering but not answering me. I don't know if that means he's just like, don't change my meetings.
Yeah, I kind of am. Believe it or not, like I actually am quite frequently having meetings at this time. I deliberately shift my working schedule to be more US specific. So even when I do have meetings with like our QE teams out in China, so when I have meetings with them, it's kind of, oh, I'm getting up early. So I don't know. How many people do we have in Europe that contribute regularly? Because what I wouldn't want it to be is just me and the APAC folks.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could lure Antonio, but I believe Antonio is Europe.
Yeah, he's out ahead of me. Yeah.
He's in Spain, so I think he's +1 to Joel. He's in Central European time. I bring it up just because I know we've talked about it before, but it doesn't even have to be something we solve right this second, but it's something that maybe in the lead up to the next KubeCon EU, I would like to do a better job of actually making space for people in their workday who, and if you start getting into like Eastern Europe, these times start being very challenging. Like we're already too late in the day. Yeah.
I will also say, I mean, I understand where Joel's comment comes from, but I will say that if we don't have friendlier times, then we will never know who we might have lured that we didn't because we don't have friendlier times. So I don't think this is specifically trying to help you, Joel. I mean, I think it's trying to help you and quite a few other people, some of whom we may never have met. And so I would be supportive as much as I do not go into those alternate time meetings.
I mean,
but I think alternating them is, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of those things where I'll talk to Mika about it, and I probably will do a late for me or very early for me meeting. I am cat powered, which is to say there's meowing at midnight and at 1 a.m. and at 3 a.m. And I answer our Australian team members at 3 and 4 a.m. my time all the time. So it's like, it's fine. Like from time to time, it's fine. But I know that when I have had, Cloud Provider Azure specific meetings, which we have definitely fallen off having those, which is a separate topic, I know, Joel. But when we've had those meetings, Peng Fei will have like 3 or 4 team members at those meetings. And so I know there are people. It's just a question of making a meeting that is actually going to fit in their workday.
And, I think it's, I'm going to hate myself for this. I think so we start there, and at some level, we even start thinking about things like, or not thinking, asking about things like, hey, so this is our core meeting that we're now making available to you. Are there other meetings like the API Server Network Proxy meeting that you need made available to you or not?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's value to sync. Obviously, here we are on a Zoom call. Like there's value to sync. There's also value to making sure that not everything is centered around Pacific time. And this is a struggle, I think, for tech in general, for Kates in general. definitely a struggle. In my particular employer, everything happens in Redmond Standard Time unless otherwise stated. And it's like, well, we need to make sure that center of gravity is not just centered around one slice of time band. Okay, so that's an effort to work on. Did we get a show of hands of who knows for sure they're going to be at KubeCon in Salt Lake City or who thinks they might be? I think Chris, you were saying you're pretty sure you're going to be there. Joel,
Yep,
you're going to be
definitely.
there.
I got a talk accepted, so
So assuming
if
everything lines
budget is
up,
all there, yeah, I'd be surprised if I'm not there now.
fantastic. Um, I am immediately thinking about the exciting panoply of all of the voices that we can now drag into our exciting SIG Cloud Provider update, which is Friday afternoon, probably doesn't conflict with anything else. Unless you're flying back on Friday. And Joel's like, wait, my thing's Friday. If I need to get them to
I don't
Joel,
know.
you're
reschedule things, I
muted.
will. Oh, you're muted. When is your thing?
I
haven't looked.
I don't know. I haven't actually looked yet. I didn't realize the schedule was out.
It just came out. Yes.
So you'll find that.
Your thing is Thursday, so you're fine.
Yeah, so if I were to say to work that I am helping out on the SIG Cloud Maintainer track talk, that does bump me up a priority point. Just
I think you might have to tell them that you're Elmiko and I we're just the placeholder track, we're just the co-chairs of the SIG who put the SIG maintainer chalk in, but it's all about testing. So vital, so important, something you have all the insights into. What?
it's
I don't know
not
if
the
you read
first
our
time
description, but it's
I've
all
done it.
about testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to tell them that is pretty important.
I will
And
have
you
a
have
look
two
at
things, not just one. And oh gosh, that might mean you have to spend a little bit of weekend time enjoying the US because you won't be able to fly back during the workday Friday since you have a thing Friday. Gosh, life is hard.
to be fair, the
Not just
flight
Friday, late Friday.
Yeah, all the flights to Europe will have already left by then. You were saying, Joel?
the flights are incredibly expensive if I want to fly at a reasonable time on like Sunday or Monday. So, oh no, it's cheaper to fly out the week before and spend the first weekend there. What a shame.
It's almost like it's important for you to be there for Contributor Summit because you're a Kate's org member, and there's an awful lot of Contributor Summit stuff that's going to go on. Pretty important. Yeah. Well, see, there we go. So see, we've got voices. We'll have to see if we have John and Kirtan showing up. Oh, you're not going to be there. Oh, that's too bad.
No, yeah.
Nope, I can't make it either.
Well, in any case, it sounds like we will have some people. Okay. Anyway, so we talked about KubeCon. We talked about ramping up new contributors, which is the ongoing struggle. Is there anything else that people had in mind that they were like, we should really talk about this? Don't have any more agenda items, so I will call it if we're good, if we don't have anything else to talk about. Other than how essential it is for Joel to be present in the US and fly on an airplane and be kept at a hotel, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, do not delay. If all y'all are coming to KubeCon and you have not reserved your hotel room yet, hopefully you already reserved one, just speculatively. And if you did not go the speculative execution branch, method, I strongly recommend it like ASAP because they're filling up. All right. Is there anything else we should talk about today? right. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.